γιατί δεν είναι normal το πράγμα οι διπλωμάτες να αντιμετωπίζουν τα όπλοπολεμόνα.
But we need to go beyond level because I don't think we need to go beyond.
We don't have to, but you should go the highest possible because he is putting us in this situation. If they don't let up, they're not going to let us pass. He said, you guys want to pass and we're not going to get past, so we're not going to prevent you from passing.
Okay, λοιπόν, θα σε τηρήσω ενήμερη.
This is a very nasty situation.
We definitely don't want to go any further forward.
I think we should actually consider to go backwards. I think we should leave this area. I do not think we should...
10 meters back.
You know, this could be a riot. This could be a riot right now against us by those people also.
Don't.
Hello?
Wait. You see, they're shooting now on the ground. You see?
Now they're shooting.
Don't.
Stop!
That's it. Stop.
Yeah, we should stay now. We should stay. Tell the others to stay.
Tell them to stay.
Stop the car. Stop the car.
Stop!
Philip Sharp. Philip Sharp. Stop the car.
Just to clarify, folks, the Swiss vehicle has got through. We are now at the front of the queue, and we've got some shooting going on around us. We've got that other car that was moving behind us, the Land Rover, is the third car in our convoy. But we need to now make a decision, and I'm going to ask you what you would do. But I'm going to give it a multiple choice options for you to choose from. Would you A, wave a white flag, B, get out of the vehicles and run for cover, C, do a U-turn and attempt to leave the area, or D, phone a friend? Now, you are more than welcome to phone a friend. If you do, put your hand up at that one. I may well ask you who that friend is. I just need you to put a hand up when we go back through these. So who's going to show a sign of neutrality by waving a white flag? Hands nice and high. Probably 20 or 30% of the audience. Who's going to get out of the vehicles and run for cover? Come on, you're being shot at. No one's putting their hand up unless you're hiding it very easily from me. Who's going to do a U-turn and attempt to leave the area? Go back. Okay, again, probably 30 or so percent of the audience. And who's going to phone a friend, use a communication device? Quite a few hands went in the air, very good. We'll get to you in a minute. Wave white flag, unfortunately, won't have a big impact on the current circumstances. I did mention we've got different number plates and we've got markings on the outside of our car to indicate which country we're from. That is a sign of neutrality, and it couldn't be any more neutral than a Swiss flag on the outside, could it? Get out of the vehicles and run for cover. Now, if you know anything about ballistics, you will have noticed that the bullet hole hadn't actually gone all the way through the car because we're inside armoured vehicles. So we're not going to get affected by that. Of course, if there's a boom out of that barrel, yeah, it's going to blow us to smithereens. But at the moment, I don't think they're going to do that on us. Do a U-turn and attempt to leave the area is exactly what we should have done 5 minutes ago, but we chose not to. We had that as an option before they were banging on the back of our car and before the guy in the car said, oh, it could be a riot against us. We had the choice to turn around and go back, but we chose not to. In fact, we chose not to do anything. So in times of crisis, as a leader, if you're not making decisions, you're not getting control of the situation. You're relying on things changing around you, which is really relying on luck. And in difficult times, I'd suggest that's not a good course of action. If you take a decision and you know the outcome, then go for it. Follow it all the way through because you've got control of the situation. But right now, we haven't done that. And the reason why the crowd is getting agitated towards us is because they know that we're doing D. Of course, they know that we're inside there. They're diplomats. There's me and others from the UN. They know that we're communicating out to try to open up this blockade for us. That's why they don't want us to leave, because then they'll know they'll be left by themselves. So a couple of hands went up over here. Who are we going to call? Just yell it out. Yes, Arafat. Great answer. The only problem is he's fighting the Israeli Defence Force. He can't really turn off them firing at us. So, yep, I like the way you're thinking. Anyone else got another option? Yes, madam. Oh, I like the way you're thinking. I want you to come on the next mission with me. You are a lateral thinker under pressure. That is very, very rare that you've nailed the right answer. Because the obvious answer is for me to call my representatives in the UN or those people that I've built relationships with. I mentioned that right at the start. It was my job to go out and build relationships. So I was calling the Israeli Defence Force liaison officer and trying to get help. But it was taking a long time for that message to go up through their chain of command and back down to that tank commander. But then all of a sudden, I started thinking like you, ma'am. And I thought, no, I've got to think laterally under pressure. This is not working. What can I do differently? I rang that Swiss vehicle and I said, look guys, I know they were going into meltdown. They'd been shot at. They'd travelled that 1 kilometre. They were standing right alongside Israeli Defence Force soldiers, and I asked them to use the hole in their windscreen as leverage, threatening to take that to the media if they didn't get a message down to that tank commander to get the rest of our convoy out of harm's way. And of course they had a direct line of communication there because those tanks had come from that spot. So well done. Can you please put your hands together? Outstanding. It's very, very rare that comes out so quickly, so well done. I think now, because we've got an expert in the room, we are all ready to go to another difficult set of circumstances, where in this instance we've gone to help 200,000 IDPs, so not refugees, internally displaced people. They've moved from a place called the Swat Valley to Peshawar. Both of these areas are located in a semi-autonomous zone that's right along the side of Afghanistan, but it's on the Pakistan side of the border. We have gone there and we're providing with the World Food Programme, the food assistance to these people. And on one day I got asked to come down to one of our distribution sites because a large crowd has formed. So when I arrived there, I'm standing in amongst the crowd and I'm getting a briefing from the guy who's doing the finger pointing in the dark blue. But if you look very carefully, I'm not looking where he's pointing because I'm discreetly trying to read the body language off those around me. And you can see the guy who's in the light blue shower camise. He's sending me a very clear message that I'd better make a decision in his favour very quickly or he's going to teach me a little lesson on violence. So I say to my guy, look, is there somewhere we can go where it's a little bit safer? And he goes, no worries, follow me. We'll go behind this big fence. All right. Now, I really wish I hadn't have worn that red jacket. As we're standing there, we're in a much better position to be able to understand what's created this crowd. If you look on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see the big tent. We are doing our distribution from there. We had all our security guards at this end to prevent the wrong people from coming in. We would then be registering people. They would move through the tent under our control with a wheelbarrow, throwing on food commodities and go out the other end of the tent. On this morning, somebody had run in the back end of the tent, grabbed a tin of cooking oil and run back out again. Our guys saw it, so they closed the distribution down, and it triggered a rumour to go around the nearby camp that we were running out of food. Now, as soon as he told me that bit of information, images came back to me of a very similar set of circumstances where my colleagues got this situation wrong and they made the wrong decisions. And I want to very quickly now take you across to Guinea, where in this instance the refugees started demonstrating by throwing stones. One of those stones actually hits the head of one of their own, and he storms into the warehouse with the limited amounts of food. And you can see there that he's an injured person, but in actual fact he is going to prioritise the pain in his stomach over the pain on his head. He hasn't gone in there seeking first aid. He grabs a bag of wheat flour, sticks it on his shoulder, and moves back out into what previously we would have defined as an aggressive crowd and morphs it into a mob. A mob is a grouping of people who now start acting outside of the law with the knowledge that everybody else around them is doing exactly the same thing. And when it comes to hungry people, they are more than happy to commit acts of violence against those that they share that neighbourhood with, because food makes up one of the 5 things that stimulates this level of aggression in every human being. It's not these people, it's all of us as well. If over a protracted period of time these 5 things are taken away from us, we will resort to violence in order to survive. Food, water and shelter are the obvious ones. The other one is, if you are injured and you need to get to a hospital, you'll fight for your right to get through to it. And the final one is, if somebody comes into your backyard and threatens your way of living, the way that you think you should be able to live, then you'll first of all try to repel that by kicking them out politically through communication. But if it doesn't work, you'll pick up arms to get them out of your backyard. And we see that so common around the world. When somebody else comes in and imposes another way of living, you have people who previously were not fighters but are more than happy to commit going to a civil war or going to a battle to protect their livelihood. Now, we don't see that here in Australia because those 5 things, if you think about it, are provided by our government and our community and the structures that we have within our communities. We had a little insight into how easily that can occur here in Australia 10 years ago with the Cronulla riots. We had people one day getting on a bus to go to work, the next day they chose to watch the bus go past and instead of going to work, stand there and fight each other. And it was simply over a way of what's satisfying or satisfactory to others about living. Now in Pakistan and many of these other countries that I've worked in, we are in situations where people are very, very close to committing that level of violence. And if we get the wrong decision, a leadership decision, this is what we're going to be dealing with. And so I'm going to ask you now, what would you do back in the Pakistan scenario? Because in 10 minutes' time, the rocks are going to get thrown and we know what happens after that. Would you, A, move back into the crowd, tighten up the security arrangements and reopen the distribution point? Would you, B, request to speak with the community elders? C, request the local police to assist with crowd control and reopen the distribution point? Or D, evacuate the area, refer to organisational policy and send an email with instructions to your staff? Now be very, very careful of this one. You will be committing yourself to saying to everyone in the room, you are a bureaucrat. And if that's okay, if you're happy with that, you'll get, if that label, then this is the answer you want. Who's going to get this thing open again? Because we haven't got a food shortage. If we move a couple of security guards back out to the other side, get the food flowing again, it will send a pretty clear message that everything's okay. So who's going to go for A? Probably 10%. Who's going to bring in the local community elders? Whoa, quite a few. I'd say 60% of the audience. Who's going to bring in the local police? Only a handful of people here have come from Queensland. Because up there, I believe you trust your police. Very, very good. Okay. If I ask this same question up in Brisbane, bang, the whole audience, straight up. In Victoria, no one answers. D, evacuate the area and I don't have to go through that one. Anyone interested in becoming a bureaucrat? You know what, in actual fact, D is a perfect answer from my perspective. As a security person trying to keep everyone safe, I'd always say to my staff, if you think you're in harm's way, get yourself out of there because you're no good to anyone tomorrow if you're dead or injured. But right now, I don't think we've reached that threshold. I think we can still manage this situation, so I'm going to knock that one off the list. C is a perfect answer for here in Australia. If something goes wrong, we call the police and they come down and deal with the crowd out the front of your office. But over there, we'll bring in the local police. They'll come down with a very heavy hand, literally, with batons against those that we've gone there to help in the first place. Then they'll turn around to us and say, hey, you need to pay us for this service and we're coming back again tomorrow to do the same job because clearly you can't run this operation without us. More and more money then goes into the hands of those who probably don't need it as much. So we try not to get the local authorities involved if we can avoid it. And that leaves B and A. And I went for both. I went for B first. Very, very importantly, I needed to speak to those who this crowd trusted. You might have recalled that I did mention it's a semi-autonomous area. The clan elders or the tribal elders, the local elders, they are the people who have the authority in this part of the world. And so I asked them to come forward and speak to me right in front of the crowd in a spot where they could understand that I was speaking to those who they trusted, and I asked them to deal with the theft problem. I needed a guarantee that it wouldn't happen again tomorrow, but I didn't need to know how they were going to deal with that. And if they could give me that guarantee, which they did, then I said I'd open up the distribution point, which is A. I got a few guards, moved them back to the back side of the tent, got the food moving again, and the crowd dispersed. So well done and congratulations. We problem solved that one really well. And now I think you're eligible to go to the most difficult and challenging workspace that I've ever been to. This is a country that has not had a functioning government, so no overall national leadership whatsoever since the early 1990s. And as a result of that, anarchy has kicked in. I'm talking about Somalia. When I arrived there, I'm told at all times with the World Food Programme, I'm going to have 2 armed guards with me. That's an unusual arrangement for a humanitarian because we like to think that the places we're going to, the community, will be the ones who will actually protect us. They'll understand the importance of us staying present and they won't do anything to adversely affect that, so they'll look after us. But over there, I'm handing out blocks of gold. Literally, no, metaphorically speaking. We are handing out food, which would be the same as handing out gold here in Australia. Everybody wants it and you'd want to have some sort of armed protection. And as a